What is paleoconservatism? Paleoconservatism is a political philosophy and strain of conservatism in the United States stressing American nationalism, Christian ethics, regionalism, traditionalist conservatism, and non-interventionism. Paleoconservatism's concerns overlap with those of the old right that opposed the New Deal in the 1930s and 1940s, as well as with paleo-libertarianism. By the start of the 21st century, the movement had begun to focus more on issues of race. The terms neoconservative and paleoconservative were coined following the outbreak of the Vietnam War and a divide in American conservatism between the interventionists and the isolationists. Those in favor of the Vietnam War then became known as the neoconservatives, interventionists, as they marked a decisive split from the nationalist isolationism that the traditionalist conservatives, isolationists, had subscribed to up until this point. Paleoconservatives press for restrictions on immigration, a rollback of multicultural programs and large-scale demographic change, the decentralization of federal policy, the restoration of controls upon free trade, a greater emphasis upon economic nationalism and non-interventionism in the conduct of American foreign policy. Historian George Hawley states that although influenced by paleoconservatism, Donald Trump is not a paleoconservative. Hawley also argued in 2017 that paleoconservatism was an exhausted force in American politics, but that for a time it represented the most serious right-wing threat to the mainstream conservative movement. Regardless of how Trump himself is categorized, others regard the movement known as Trumpism as supported by, if not a rebranding of, paleoconservatism. From this view, the followers of the old right did not fade away so easily and continue to have significant influence in the Republican Party and the entire country. Paleoconservatives support restrictions on immigration, decentralization, trade tariffs and protectionism, economic nationalism, isolationism, and a return to traditional conservative ideals relating to gender, race, sexuality, culture, and society. Paleoconservatism differs from neoconservatism in opposing free trade and promoting republicanism. Paleoconservatives see neoconservatives as imperialists and themselves as defenders of the republic. Paleoconservatives tend to oppose abortion, gay marriage, and LGBTQ rights. Paleoconservatives believe that tradition is a form of reason, rather than a competing force. Pat Buchanan argues that a good politician must defend the moral order rooted in the Old and New Testament and natural law, and that the deepest problems in our society are not economic or political, but moral. According to historian Paul V. Murphy, paleoconservatives developed a focus on localism and states' rights. From the mid-1980s onward, chronicles promoted a Southern traditionalist worldview focused on national identity, regional particularity, and skepticism of abstract theory and centralized power. According to Haig, Beirich, and Sebesta, 2009, the anti-modernism of the paleoconservative movement defined the neo-Confederate movement of the 1980s and 1990s. During this time, notable paleoconservatives argued that desegregation, welfare, tolerance of gay rights, and church-state separation had been damaging to local communities, and that these issues had been imposed by federal legislation and think tanks. Paleoconservatives also claimed the Southern agrarians as forebears in this regard. Paleoconservatives are generally strong opponents of Israel and supporters of the Arabist cause in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. They have argued that supporting the country damages foreign relations with the Islamic world and American interests abroad. Buchanan has asserted that Capitol Hill is Israeli-occupied territory. Kirk argued that, not seldom has it seemed, as if some eminent neoconservatives mistook Tel Aviv for the capital of the United States. During the 2023 Israeli-Hamas war, paleoconservative Tucker Carlson argued Israel was guilty of war crimes, and that President Joe Biden's support of the country risked American complicitness in the actions.